Hey, so welcome back. Obviously, we've taken a little break from the virtual Sunday school class. We've been able to meet in person there at First Christian for a while now, and we're going to continue to meet in person on Sunday morning at 9:30. But we were talking over the last couple of weeks, and with some of you guys finally getting to go back to college in person, we thought maybe it would be a good idea to go back to offering the Sunday school lesson online as well. So that's what we're doing here today. Since we last met back in the summer virtually, in person, we've really been trying to cover what it means to be the church to the world. We looked at that for a while. Then we looked at some different names of Jesus and the attributes that come with those names and the power that comes with those names. We just finished up looking at Matthew chapter 18, and we decided this Sunday would be the perfect Sunday to start back videoing because we're going to be starting a new series based on Francis Chan's book, Letters to the Church. It's an awesome book. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. But let's just go on let's dive back into it. First thing I would like to do as we start this series is I would like you first to close your eyes. Imagine you've lived your entire life in a remote village somewhere in the world where you've not really had a experience with the outside world. You're very limited to the group directly around you. And one day a book shows up in your community, in your tribe, as you will, and it's the Bible. And you're able to read it for the first time, and you're able to read about the New Testament church. And that is the understanding, that's your first understanding, first experience with church. So you've not had any of this church that we all experience, but this is your first experience. And now I want you to think about, after you read this New Testament and you read about this early church, these early Christians coming together, now I want you to think about your own personal experience of church, and I want you to ask yourself, do they in fact line up? And as we go through this series over the next several weeks, I want us always to be thinking about that particular difference. Because I think if we were all honest with ourselves, church in America today is not really that similar to the early church. Sadly, I think we do have some things that we're doing right, but there's obviously a lot of things we're doing wrong. And you may be saying, well, I'm only in college, I'm young, this is the way we've always done it, or this is the way my understanding of it is, or I'm too young to make a difference. When in fact, you're not. You're never too young to make a difference. You're never too young to change your gospel experience and your church experience to line up with what the Bible teaches us. Because see, that's the key part of it all. That's the part I think we're missing in America today, is we've decided that we can change the Bible to meet our standards, to meet what we want. And that's actually the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be changing our standards and our viewpoints to line up with what the Bible teaches. So this first lesson, I want to talk about how we can simply change our churches. And that is based on what Christ tells us in John. I think this is the thing. In John 13:35, he tells us, by this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. So right there, I want you to think about your church. Think about your experience in church. Do you feel like when people walk into whatever church you go to, for those of you that are coming to First Christian, are we showing love? And are we showing this supernatural, godlike love that he's talking about? When we think about the love that Christ has for us, he came to this earth, he died on a cross, a very painful, humiliating death for us. Are we showing that level of love to folks coming into our church for the first time, or folks that have been there every Sunday with us for years? I think if we were all honest with ourselves, not so much. Sadly, I was going through the Biscuitville drive-through Friday morning, and I pulled up, to pay, and the lady was like, "Well, the lady in front of you paid for it, and that pay it forward." And she was like, "Do you want to keep it going?" I was like, "Of course." She was like, I was somewhere in the 20th person in a row to do it, and she was talking about how amazing it was to see it, and I was like, "Yeah, it really is awesome." And so I'm driving down the road and eat my steak biscuit, and I got to thinking to myself, why are we amazed that we showed love to a complete stranger? It's kind of what we're supposed to do as Christians. But instead, our country and our culture is shocked when we show love to one another. And that's a problem. So how do we fix this problem? How do we make that not such a shocking thing? Well, James tells us in chapter 1, verse 27, that pure and undefiled religion before our God and Father is this: to look after the orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. He tells us a little bit earlier in chapter 1, verse 22, to be doers of the word and not hearers only. That's how we show love. There's a lot of churches out there that do mission blitz type things, or these group efforts as a church to reach out to the community, and they're awesome. They really are cool. We've talked about our in-person Sunday school class, our college kids getting together and helping Habitat for Humanity build some houses. These are awesome things. We're showing love to the community. But for those of you that have been with us in person, I've been hitting you really heavy on the idea that the gospel is a personal experience too. And you have to take ownership in your part of it. You have to take ownership in your part of the body of Christ, which is sadly countercultural today, because we would rather blame everybody else for our problems or blame everybody else for our decisions, when in fact that's not what the Bible teaches us. We've got to take our share of it here. So again, churches keep doing these wonderful things where they go out and reach out to community. Those are awesome. That's showing the love. But us as individuals, we got to stop judging that person coming in that first Sunday because they don't have the right clothes on, because they don't have the right Bible, they don't use the right translation. We got to stop judging our churches based on how good the music was, how good the preacher brought it that morning. Did the preacher bring his A game? That's not what we're here for. We're here to love, and that time on Sunday and Wednesday is this rekindling of the fellowship, this recharging of the battery to love one another. And we have to take it to the world. Some of you are going to finally start to get to go back to school in person. Seek out that person who doesn't have a friend, looks lonely. Seek out that person who's made fun of for the way they dress or the way they talk, and befriend them. Genuinely befriend them and show them love. Don't expect anything in return. Just show them love. That's how we start to take this culture back. We sit here, and obviously you're not, unless you've been living under a rock, things ain't been all that great in 2020. And half our country is counting on a Democrat to fix it, and half of our country's counting on a Republican to fix the problem. Look, if you're counting on Washington, D.C. to fix your problems, you've already messed up. We have to take ownership in it. We know who sits on the throne. The God we serve doesn't come up for election every 4 years. He's in control for eternity. So if we take the time to change our world with love, then it really doesn't matter what's going on in Washington, D.C. to count for our day-to-day. We don't have to worry about what the law says, because there's no law against love. Loving your neighbor, loving the people out there who need it the most. And I'm going to tell you, I think one of the biggest problems we face as a church in America today is we preach about God's love and God's grace and God's mercy, and then we have none for anybody else. And we're supposed to be children of God. We're supposed to imitate Jesus in our walk. We're not doing it. We're too busy saying, oh, this person made this mistake. Yes, they sinned, but guess what? So did you. And so will I. We got to start hating the sin but loving the sinner. So as we go through this series, as we talk about how do we make our church better, how do we make our church more like what God intended, first thing I think we got to do, we got to start with love. So this week I want to challenge you to seek out one person at work, one person at school, one person somewhere in your life, and just show them love. Don't say anything out of the ordinary. Just show them love. And see if it doesn't make a difference. And you may not know it immediately, but I promise you, if you love one another, and we go about at church by loving those out there in the community that are hurting right now, because I promise you, you're not going to have to look far or hard to find people who are struggling right now. Our world is hurt. Our world is falling apart. We have the hope and the love of Jesus Christ that fixes all things. Let's go out and let's share it with them this week. We will see you guys again. We're going to continue to come back to doing these lessons. We will be meeting on Sunday mornings at 9:30 for Sunday school in person. Bring your mask. Stick around for 10:30 to listen to the sermon. And we hope to see you guys again next week.